Can the chronic feeling of helplessness be a bigger trauma than a single horrifying event? In today's episode, I'm honored to host a conversation with Navy SEAL team leader Jason Tuschen and Johnny Walker, an interpreter and Iraqi native who became a brother to the SEALs while they served together during the war in Iraq. As a result of his service to our Navy SEAL teams, Johnny's life and the lives of his family were constantly under threat. After the murder of a family member and in light of the extreme impact on his family, Johnny agreed to Jason's offer to help him relocate him and his family from Iraq to America. What follows is a story of slow rolling trauma based on the ties of brotherhood that transcend national boundaries. Let's drop into the story. I am so excited to have this conversation. Jason, true or false? The years that you spent desperately trying to bring JW and his family to safety here in America was a worse trauma than anything you saw in combat as a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, I'd have to say true, and it different, but it's true. And the reason I say it's different and what makes it true is I had no control over getting Johnny out in many ways. I was, in when you're in combat with your team, you've been training together, you are able, you control part of you have a decision, you have a say in what's going to happen and,
Right.
and the outcome. With Johnny's case, I felt like I did not have much of a say or influence. All I could do was continue to prod and poke, but I was completely beholden to bureaucrats they didn't care who Johnny was or his family or the situation he was in. They're collecting a government paycheck and going to work from 9 to 5, and there's no sense of urgency. Whereas, I had come from Iraq and knew the danger Johnny and his family were in, and I couldn't force it through. I couldn't hold rank. I couldn't expedite the process at all. I was, like I said, I was beholden to a bureaucratic process that is a slow moving machine. So yeah, it was just a feeling of helplessness. It was horrible.
Yeah, that's it. So JW, let's go there. Let's go to the situation on the ground. And I want you to tell this part of the story. How dangerous was it? Can you give us some specific examples of the state of play over in Iraq?
First, thanks for having us, me and my brother Tush, and appreciate this opportunity to express our opinion about what's going on now. But before that, I just want to say what happened in Afghanistan in the Kabul airport did not present American people. Again, did not present us. So anyway, the answer for your question is take us years and years and years from pain and tears. And physically, if I being killed, this is going to be end of the story. No big deal. I accept it. But the problem is with my family. The problem is not only to be the capture to be touched, but the problem is the shame. They have to have it everywhere when they go. When my wife, she want to brag about her husband. She cannot. She hide it in herself. She couldn't say Johnny Walker or AKA Riyadh, he's my husband, because soon people, they can know I work with American. They call me traitor, dishonest, whatever name you can call it. So this kind of things stuck with my family for almost 5 years. And
did you lose family to the violence over there?
I lost my brother because of me. And this is like normal action for savages. Everyone know that. Like look at 9/11. They kill honest people. They didn't kill American soldier. So that's being said, I want to add something for Tush. So Tush in that time with his position, and he can run all the mission. He can capture the most strong savage in the world. He can use all the power he have to protect himself and his brothers, and at the same time to kill or capture bad guys. And this is allowed by U.S. government. But when came to save someone, work with them, he feel hopeless. He cannot do anything. And this is kind of the struggling between reality, bureaucrat and warrior action. And warrior action, just do it, no matter what. And I keep saying that. What is make me admire about Tuschen thought that he accept to sacrifice his future as senior chief Navy SEAL better than he feel guilt with himself.
We'll get to that.
Life. Yeah,
we will get to that piece of what Jason was willing to do.
Yeah,
because the trauma was so great that he felt feeling helpless. But tell us about the situation on the ground, if you would. And you mentioned that you lost your brother because of you. How did that situation unfold? I think people need to know just how dangerous it was for you in Iraq.
So my brother, he asked me several times to find job or something. So I told him, brother, and he's my older brother, I can't find job easy, but I cannot let you work with American. This is going to be huge risk for both of us. If something happened to me, should someone stay in the house? So anyway, I confessed him to work with the Iraqi army. So the bad guys, they try so many times to kill me, they couldn't. And so they follow my brother while he transport bread to the Iraqi army, and they capture him with no mercy, nothing. They just shot him in his face without giving him any chance to protect himself. And this is going to stay with me forever. And I feel guilty about it somehow, but I know freedom, maybe right now we have chaos in Iraq, but also we can see freedom after multiple years. Well, this is the price, blood.
Yeah. And another, really important piece of your story that people need to understand is that you didn't say, hey, sign me up. I'm going to work with the Army or the SEALs or with the Americans so that I can get to America and live the dream. You did not want to leave. You wanted to stay, even in this dangerous environment, and see democracy come to your country. And it was actually that same helplessness. You talk about the helplessness you feel or the guilt about your brother being killed in the street. It was that helplessness that actually moved you off that stance of, I'm going to stay no matter what. It was what you saw about how your family was living. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So when American forces came to Iraq, no one called them invader or you guys invade our country. Everyone happy that American take over, and everyone just want to talk with American forces, and include myself, because it's part of my dream is American life, American culture, cowboy, Kenny Roger, country song, all this kind of amazing things.
Yeah.
And in that time, I would love to live in the United States as part of my dream. But I didn't use that when I work with Americans at the beginning, because there's no anti-activity. I work with military police, and all what we have is fun. And I never think I'm going to move to the United States. And I just want to collect money and have fun and support my family. But everything changed when I moved and started working with the SEAL. And I started there is a lot of bad agenda that's going to happen to my country. And this has kind of changed my mind and changed my thinking. Like those people, every time when we catch them, we find a lot of explosive, a lot of destroyed tools. And there is no building tools ever we found with them. So it looks like those savages, they can destroy my country. And I will do everything to stop them. And I never thought I'm going to leave my country without kick all those bad guys from my country. And they offered to me to move to the United States. I told them no.
Yeah, you told them no. It was Jason that was trying to convince you to get to safety, and you said no.
Yeah, but then I read the history, look at to Germany, look at to Japan. Yeah, it's going to be struggling 5, 6, 7 years. I accept that to sacrifice, and I'm willing to sacrifice for that because it's my country, it's worth it. And that's why I refuse all the time. But things getting worse. For me, nothing changed. Every night mission. So I have nothing changing to change my mind. But what has changed my mind to move to the United States is my family. And things getting worse every day, like from Qaeda. They're getting more power, and our government get more corrupt. And this is two tools make the future so dark. And one day, while I'm in my house, I saw my kids, they have no life, nothing. They cannot go to candy shop. They have no school. And my wife she moved them every 2 weeks or a month or 2 months from neighbor to neighbor or from town to village. And sometime at the border between Iraq and Syria, they live with Bedouin at the tent. And like I mentioned at the beginning, they live and they run away with shame. Like I can understand right now, oh, this is what's going on. And you can move from place to place, but you're proud about what you did. But you moved to save your kid's life, and everyone, if he know who you are, is going to shame you. This is the big deal to me.
Right.
And it's like
that shame that they lived in hiding,
Yeah.
Well, you were doing the work to, frankly, save many American lives. But Jason, you saw what was happening. You knew the conditions on the ground. You were imploring Johnny to get to safety. When did you start that process of trying to get him a visa and get him here?
It was interesting. So when Johnny and I, like halfway through that deployment, so like mid 2005, one of the groups we worked with, they had an interpreter who, Al Qaeda was trying to kill, and they moved him out of the country. And I started talking to those guys about it. And they said, explain the process. There's this House of Representatives resolution that grants special immigrant status to Iraqi and Afghani citizens and their families who are in danger for their support for us. So I remember getting that information, and Johnny and I had a lot of candid, conversations over the course of that deployment, and talked all the time. And, so I kind of knew the answer when I asked him if he wanted to have me work on getting him to the States. And I knew he was a student of history and really wanted to see Iraq turn into a constitutional republic, if you will, and secular. And so I accepted that. But then, like, towards the end of that deployment, we watched the trial of Saddam going on. And it was we had a crazy situation. I had all the interpreters living in my room, except for Johnny had his own place. And, all the interpreters that, other than Johnny, were American citizens. And I remember watching the verdict be read, convicting Saddam to death for his crimes. And, just how excited everybody was in that room. But Johnny, he was smiling, but you could see the gravity of the situation on his face. It's like, okay, he's got to live with this aftermath. And, what should have, Saddam getting executed or getting convicted should have been a unifying moment. I think it just made things more divisive in Iraq and more violent for a little while. And Johnny and his family, we're going to have to live with that. Whereas all the other interpreters and myself, we're going to go home at some point and not have to deal with it. And so that was towards the tail end of the deployment. So my parting shot to Johnny before I left was, hey man, if you want me to work on this, that offer will always stand. And, let me know if you want me to do it. And I just remember that feeling, saying goodbye to him on that tarmac at BIAP, like, he's not going to make it. And like, this is the last time I'm ever going to see this dude. And I just spent 7 months of my life connected at the hip with him. And it was sad, like, fuck, he's not gonna, if he doesn't try to get out of Iraq, I don't think him and his family are going to make it. But, it was his decision, and I understood his decision and his reasoning behind it. And I completely admired it. It was courageous as hell, but it wasn't the answer I wanted to hear. That changed a few months later, though. That was October when we parted. And then January of 2006 is when he called me
and said, please, get it started, the process of bringing here.
Stella is proud to partner with the Green Beret Foundation. The Green Beret Foundation provides Special Forces soldiers and their families with emergency, immediate, and ongoing support. Through their work, the Green Beret Foundation reduces the burden of life's transitions and covers the cost of life-changing care, including stellate ganglion block, for Green Berets and their partners. Visit www.greenberetfoundation.org to learn more about their mission and how you can support this organization.
You started in January of that year, and it was years. I mean, when you first told me this story, I just was, I had to double check. What do you mean it took you years, and nothing was moving? Bring us into that process and tell us what that was like.
Okay, yeah. So mid-January 2006, Wiz, he was the skipper of SEAL Team 1, and Johnny gave me a call at home. And that in and of itself freaked me out because the commanding officer generally doesn't call somebody who's not in their chain of command at home. So I thought it was bad news that something bad had happened to Johnny. Turns out he was on the on the phone with him. And they said, "Hey, man," all he said was, "Hey, I got Johnny here with me. Things have gotten really bad for him. Can you, he said you talked about getting him out. Can you work on that?" I'm like, "Oh, hell yeah." And so I hung up and started the process. And that part was a little overwhelming, but it was because I didn't know where to begin. However, it gave me a sense of purpose and drive and motivating. And pretty quickly, I found a lawyer, an immigration attorney, who, George Sobka Jr., man, guy's got a heart of gold. I told him the story and he got excited and said, "This is awesome. I'm all over this. I'll do it." And he did it pro bono. And this was in February of 2006. I'm like, well, cool. I got a lawyer on it. How long can it take? If, here's an immigration attorney who's done, worked with dozens upon dozens of immigrants for a variety of things and had really great success. And he's working Johnny's case. It should take, 4 to 5 months and Johnny and his family will be here. The process was, that could have been more off the mark. The process was so unbearably slow. It was just reams of paperwork. And, the instructions were kind of half baked, and you'd send the stuff in to whatever, agency, whether it's Department of State or Homeland Security, and you just wouldn't hear anything for weeks or months on end. And then they would come back with, this line was not filled out correctly. You didn't dot your I's, you used the wrong punctuation or whatever stupid excuse they had. And because I was, I'm in the middle, so I'm between DC and Iraq, I got to get that information, have the lawyer and myself review it, then send it over to whomever's working with Johnny to get some things filled out. And we did things wrong too. Like we had to pick a birth date for Johnny because he wasn't entirely sure what date in December it was. And the phonetic spelling of Arabic names, there's for us gringos, there's plenty of ways to do that. So we screwed a few things up, but the process was ungodly slow. And then things started getting a little bit more unstuck when, Wiz came back from his deployment. So, it was 6 months after I got back, and then went to DC and was working on the National Security Council or whatever there. So he was able to I would get a call from him and go, "Hey, I just talked to, Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff, explained Johnny's situation." And then 2 days later, a little bit of the paperwork could get unstuck. We also had some mid-grade officers who had worked with Johnny in Iraq, who were on the Senate and House Armed Services Committee as, the SOCOM liaisons. And they were able to, get the story out to some pretty high-ranking congressional staffers and get them interested. So we have Navy 06s interacting with the Department of Homeland Security. We have really high-ranking congressional staffers working on it. And it still was taking years to get done.
You had assets that nobody has, and they were infiltrated, in a friendly way through all of the decision-making bodies. And yet it took years to the point where you got to a place where you were willing, as Johnny was saying earlier, to risk everything, to risk your career, to be sent to prison. What was that desperate plan that you and your brothers talked about to get Johnny out?
Yeah, because the writing was on the wall. We could see it. So, President Obama, when he was elected, one of his campaign platforms was to shut Iraq down and pull out of there. And so this is 2009 or 2008, he got elected, but, halfway, 6 months into his term, we were like, oh God, okay. If he does in fact pull out and we don't have resolution on this, what is going to happen to Johnny and his family? And so a buddy of ours, Johnny's and mine, who we were all deployed with together in 2005, was in a kind of a key leadership position for the SEAL team that was over there. And he and I kind of communicated off government lines and said, hey, look, man, it's going to be better to beg for forgiveness than ask permission in this case. We both agreed, the guilt for both of us, if we didn't succeed and didn't do everything in our power to get Johnny and his family out, would be way worse than any punishment we could have. So we decided to, hey, if we don't have a resolution on this by the time you guys redeploy, he said, hey, well, we'll stick him we'll smuggle them out. We'll put them in a shipping container with the family, cut some holes in the for ventilation, give them a bucket and some water and some MREs, and just try to smuggle them in, because there's just no way we could live with the guilt of failing and just leave them hanging out to dry like we kind of just did in Afghanistan. It's just that whatever punishment would have come our way had we actually gone through that crazy plan and got caught, would have been worth it if Johnny and Beta and the kids would have set foot on, U.S. soil.
How was this trauma of feeling so helpless affecting you personally, your body, you talked about waking up with a feeling of dread. Can you talk about the personal impact of this trauma?
Yeah. I mean, because it was perpetually on the back of your mind. So, okay, if I'm focused on something cool, but still gnawing away in the back of me is this sense of like, I haven't accomplished what I set out to do. And I can't control a lot of it. And so it was just this perpetual underlying stress that, it was impacting my sleep, impacting my relationship at home. I was drinking too much to kind of self-medicate and numb so I could forget about that, that Johnny and his family were still out there in harm's way. And I just remember every morning going into work and logging in the computer, just, like you said, with a sense of dread, because I expected to every day I expected this message coming in an email saying, hey man, bad news, thanks for all your hard work, but Johnny was killed last night or his family was murdered, and that was just every single day. And the weekends when I didn't have the connectivity, those were even more stressful because I wasn't getting a thumbs up that everything was okay on Saturday and Sunday. I'd have to wait till Monday to make sure Johnny was still alive and the process was still moving forward. It was, I never want to go through it again. I can handle most stuff, but like not having control of the situation is really, it's frightening, particularly for team guys, I think.
It sounds like a living hell. Warriors are people of action, and that feeling of helplessness is about the worst feeling you could have. Johnny, once you decided that you were going to get out, it must have been like walking through mud for you on your end too, because your family's in danger. You're seeing how bad it's getting. How did the trauma of waiting and being helpless impact you on your end?
So I remember like when Tuschen and all the guys, all the SEALs, I mean, no matter who is he, small piece or big piece, work in my case, and I know for sure I'm going to go there, my struggling start, especially like if something happened to my family right now. And almost I'm having that opportunity to make my kids live freely and no one pressure them to take any direction. It's kind of having feeling I'm living in my country, Iraq, but I am strange. And especially like after they put my name in the mosque, I am trader, this and that, and they announce my name everywhere. So basically we have no place to stay. It's like one-way trip. If we can have it or we can be done. And the big issue for me is family. I put all the cases in front of me. How about if they capture my kids, torturing them? How about if they kill them? How is my life? All this kind of struggling, how losing my mind. And the only things I hear is the mission, because go capture those bad guys, savages who try to kill me or my family. If I capture them, save other life, this is my only healing. And I remember Tush sent capital letters email to the teams. Don't let Johnny Walker go in any mission.
Yeah, right. He wanted to lock you away, to keep you safe, because he knew what the conditions were. Jason, you got a call that you thought was it, and you had to go outside and take that call. You got that call that you were dreading. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was right back, and that was the original call to get this going, and like it's so. Yeah, January, I was in my house and the phone rings and I looked down at the number and it's, I immediately recognized it as one of the voice over internet protocol phone numbers that we used in Iraq. And I'm like, oh Christ, man, somebody's calling me from Iraq at home. This is bad.
Yeah.
And so all this is going through my head, and I'm making a beeline for the front door because my young, at the time they're young, kids and my wife are in the kitchen and the living room, and they're going about their evening routine. And I'm just like, I don't want them to see me break down,
Yeah.
I need to be alone. So I ran out to the front yard and answered the phone, and it turned out that it wasn't that. It was, Steve and J Dub asking for help, going, it's gotten really bad. But yeah, that was just, I went from just an unbearable sense of dread,
Yeah.
and bracing myself for the worst news anyone can ever get, to a massive
perpetual dread though.
Oh yeah, what? Yeah.
I mean, in a way, like that kicked off years where you couldn't breathe, where you were holding your breath for like years.
It was 3.5 years, the process from start to when Johnny got here. And the only saving grace in all of it was that literally every single SEAL, every single team guy who deployed to Iraq was involved in some small way or big way, and was, had Johnny's back throughout that whole time. And that, knowing like he and his family were protected as best our guys could was definitely the only comfort in that entire time frame. That, okay, at least Johnny's with team guys, and if we need to, they'll go get his family and move him down here, which they ultimately did. Other than that, it was, that's where if we pulled out, now we're gonna have to break the law to, finish this job. And
he wouldn't have that protection if you guys pulled out, then he really would have been right on his own and quickly killed.
It'd been really hard. I mean, Johnny's arguably one of the most street smart, savvy dudes I know. So if anybody would have been able to escape that, had we pulled out and not smuggled them out, it would have been Johnny. But the odds were completely stacked against him and the family.
I respect that, and JW, I know what your capacity is given your relationship with so many of the teams guys, but it'd be you up against a whole mass collection of enemies.
Maybe it's going to be me against bad guys, savages.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because when I work with SEALs and American forces, I didn't work with American. I work with good side, good people against bad people. And this is what the most people, they don't get it. There is nothing about nationality. There is nothing about religion. It's all about how we can build the dream and hope for our kids tomorrow. Just want to say that.
So those odds, no matter how good you are, it just nobody could survive those kind of odds over time. So then, Jason, you got this call that you'd been waiting for, that JW and his family landed and they were safe. Tell us about that, what that experience was like.
Oh man, like I had spent 3.5 years dreaming about being at the damn airport and watching Johnny and his family come off the plane. And, and I thought for sure in that 3.5 year period, it would have happened, and the day it does happen, I'm stuck at Fort Irwin of all places, preparing for a deployment to Iraq and going through a final training exercise. And, so we're sitting in this makeshift jock, and you're not supposed to have cell phones in there, but, everybody knew the situation. So I had mine on there, and I literally was pacing around I was a nervous wreck, man. Guys were laughing at me, just like I literally felt like a 50s sitcom, standing outside the delivery room, waiting to, pass out cigars because I had 10 fingers and 10 toes, and it's a boy. And so that's going on all morning, and I must have checked my watch, every 10, 15 seconds. Finally, it was like 9:30 or 10 in the morning. I hear that a text message come in, and it's from George, the lawyer, and just says, hey, we got him. The whole family's here with us. And
awesome.
And that's when all the emotions finally caught up, 3.5 years of just stress, man, kind of finally went away right at that moment. And it was a pretty liberating feeling.
Oh, I can only imagine. JW, you landed, and you and your son, you went to Target, you got a t-shirt, you had these like mundane moments that were so meaningful to you. And I want people to hear that piece of what you shared with me.
Yeah, so we land in Chicago, me and my wife and my kids. And I have like time spent with three of my kids, except Mustafa, because he is the youngest one. And when
Uh-huh.
we land in Chicago and we arrived to the hotel, first things I did, I just want to act normal, like normal father and his son. I just want to take him outside and walk on the street without anyone, without looking left and right in my shoulder. And we went to the Target, me and him, and I bought 3X t-shirt. I never wear it in my life for $20. I give the $20 and I just enjoy the freedom that no one want to kill my son or me. And I still love Target from that time. It became symbol of my freedom.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So this has been really a powerful story that really helps people understand, I think, a new dimension of trauma, which is that it's not always, those shocking, horrifying things that happen that can cause trauma. But if your trauma was worse, waiting to get JW to safety, Jason, then that says something about the kind of chronic helplessness of that kind of slow, soul crushing trauma. What is the thing? I want to hear last word kind of from both of you on what you think, in brief, people really need to understand about trauma that they don't right now.
Oh, wow. I'd say the first and foremost, don't self-medicate, right? There's only so much you can control in life, right? So, when I look at these helpless situations, and look at what we've gone through in the last couple of years, like lockdowns. I mean,
Yeah.
that's traumatic for people. That's going to add a layer of stress, and you can't control it. Really try to focus on those things in life that you can control, and try not to dwell upon the things that are completely out of your control. And that's so much easier said than done. It's almost impossible in some ways, but you can find positive distractions as long, definitely don't self-medicate, because that just exacerbates everything. And I've done that too many times, and it does not help. Find some way to make yourself better. Be positive. Be positive. And try to make positive change in your own life. Whether that's focus on getting better sleep, or focus on better nutrition, or staying active, or find some release that you can turn your brain off. For me, it's go out and surfing. And that was, for me, that was when Johnny's stuff was going on. That was therapy. It was just going out and paddling and sitting in the water and catching some waves. That helped. But the times I dwelt on it too much, it didn't help the situation at all. One, I was just an asshole at home, and I was drinking, and that didn't help Johnny and his family get here in any way, shape, or form. It was just me feeling sorry for myself because I couldn't control the situation. So realize, control those things that you can control. Focus on what, yourself a little bit, and making some positive impact on your own life and others around you. If you dwell on it, it's going to eat you alive.
That's it. JW, over to you for kind of a last word of wisdom on how trauma impacts us, or how we can come through a time of trauma.
So the best things from my humble understanding is how we face all the difficulties, everything in our life. It's so simple. We just have to be returned to our nature, which is human being, and don't judge people about, like Tuschen said before, color or religion or anything, and shine the diamond inside you. And that's it. Make your diamond shine to everyone and separate the love. This is the only way we can face all the difficulties, all the complicated politics situation, the revolution, technology. Be back to your nature, be human, and that's it.
Well, thank you. This is such a story of such love between you guys. Your brotherhood is so clear to me. And I just really wanted to honor that and bring this story forward in whatever way I can with whatever platforms I'm given. So thank you both so much. I can't wait to get this episode out to people. I think it's going to really help a lot of people.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing. It's important to address these things. I think, too often with like mental health or trauma or anything else, luckily it's coming more in the forefront, but it stays in the shadows too much. And really it helps to talk about it, and address it and realize that you're not alone.
No, reckoning with it straight on is a huge thing that I think is critical with trauma.
Post-traumatic stress is not a life sentence. Trauma can be healed with the right insights, the right treatments, and the right support. The story of our trauma is presented by Stella. Visit www.stellacenter.com to learn more about Stella's breakthrough trauma treatments. Please share this episode with people you care about who have been impacted by trauma. And remember to subscribe on Spotify and other streaming platforms.